Hi, everyone. Welcome to our annual Food Systems Career Panel hosted by the ASU Swette Center for Sustainable Food Systems. We are so happy to have you all here with us today. My name is Layla. I'm a student worker with the Swette Center, and I'll be moderating this event. For those of you who don't know, the Swette Center is a research and policy hub here at ASU, working to advance a more equitable, resilient, and sustainable food system. We have many priorities from advancing organic agriculture and researching the true cost accounting of food to educating the next generation of food systems leaders. We are incredibly fortunate to have a lineup of 4 accomplished food systems professionals from diverse sectors with us today. After they share their individual experiences and advice, we'll conclude with a Q&A for any specific questions you may have. But before I introduce our panelists, I just want to acknowledge that today is Good Friday. So if you happen to celebrate, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. Now, for brief introductions, joining us are Lucy Flores, design strategist and the founder of Studio Magic Hour, an innovative design studio dedicated to advancing equity in food systems. Next, we have Ashley Grabb, the Director of Agriculture and Food Systems Support Division at the Arizona Department of Agriculture. Her division focuses on addressing the needs of local farmers, ranchers, and stakeholders. Next up is Rachael Stewart, the Southwest Regional Director of Farm to Power, a nonprofit connecting rural communities to opportunities in renewable energy. On top of that, she's also an Arizona rancher and the founder of her own nonprofit, People First Global Food and Land Reclamation Foundation. And last but not least is Joseph Brinkley, the Senior Director of Regenerative Development at Bonterra Organic Estates, which is a certified regenerative organic winery in California committed to zero waste strategies. He also has his own small-scale farm, and he's a student in our Masters of Sustainable Food Systems graduate program. And on that note, I just want to give a quick pitch about our graduate programs here at ASU. We offer a 1-year graduate certificate in food policy and sustainability leadership, and a full 2-year master's degree in sustainable food systems, both of which give you the opportunity to build your expertise and advance your career in sustainability and food policy. These programs are all online, except for 2 in-person immersive trips where students come to Arizona for a week to learn directly from food producers, and then we go to Washington, D.C. to meet with policymakers. The director of these programs is none other than Kathleen Merrigan, the executive director of the Swette Center and former deputy secretary of the USDA. Applications are currently open for classes to start in August of this year, and we have scholarships available. So if you're interested, check it out on our website. We'll put a link in the chat so you can learn more. But that's enough for me, so I'll jump right into the questions for our panelists. We'll stick to the same order of introductions, so we'll start off with Lucy. So, Lucy, could you give us an overview of your background, your organization, and your current role?
Yes, thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here with all of these amazing people and practitioners. My name is Lucy Flores. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a designer who is dedicated to advancing equity in the food system. I run a collaborative design studio called Studio Magic Hour, where I get to partner with all different types of organizations across the country. More often than not, it's nonprofits and government entities, ranging from school districts to state agencies, but also for-profits, coalitions, formal and informal networks, and oftentimes partnerships, including many of those types of organizations. And I am brought in, and my partners on projects are brought in to facilitate design projects and design processes where community members and folks who are closest to the work are key interest holders and collaborators in that process. So typically we're designing things like programs and services, sometimes products that solve for both opportunities and challenges in the food system. And so just to give a couple examples, because oftentimes that sounds fairly vague, which is absolutely fair. A recent project I can share is one I did with a partnership with Share Our Strength nationally. They provided a lot of support to a partnership with Second Harvest of the Big Bend in northern Florida. There was a desire to co-create a more participant-centered summer meal program in rural Florida, in particular in Taylor and Gulf counties and the Florida Panhandle. And so this is based on or following the USDA's interim rule about non-congregate summer meal programs. And so the question was, how can we design more accessible summer meal programs in rural Florida that are reflective of the needs and the desires of community members who are closest to those programs, and do it in a way that fits within both USDA and Florida Department of Ag rules and regulations, while also working to reduce stigma associated with rural food insecurity. So those are the types of projects I come into as a partner to facilitate a process where we can learn together and collaboratively design, in this case, new rural meal distribution models for those summer meal programs. So that's just an example. I work in all different parts of the food system, from the consumer side to the ag side and everything in between. So that's a little about my role and my work. And I'm based in rural Maine these days, though I'm originally from the West Coast.
All right, great. Now, Ashley, could you share?
Yeah, that's hard to follow up with. Lucy does awesome work. So I am Ashley Grabb, and I am actually a sixth generation farm kid from the Midwest. So I am from Southern Illinois. I grew up on my grandparents' farm. We canned our own food, got shares of neighbors' pigs and cows, had a very large garden. And on the flip side of that, I also grew up with a single mother. So I participated in free lunch, WIC, SNAP. So I would say agriculture and food access programs are very much in the building blocks of my body. So jumping ahead a little bit to the next question, but that is what drives me, is ensuring that everyone has access to food, and then also with that, that farmers are supported in the system that currently exists. I have been at the Arizona Department of Agriculture for, I think it's about 7 months today, which has been a very wild ride through the federal changes that have happened. And I'm currently the director of the Agriculture and Food System Support Division, which is the only non-regulatory department at, or only non-regulatory division at the department. So everyone else does a lot of regulation around pest management. So ensuring, like right now we have a greening, I can't remember what it's called, some sort of greening disease in Nogales that has the potential of wiping out all of our oranges, all of our citrus crops down there, as well as like the bird flu. That's Dwayne down the hall that manages that. That's not someone from the USDA that comes in. That's very much our bare bones team that does that. My responsibilities right now are providing visionary leadership and kind of strategic direction of this new division that exists, and really to support the entire food system, from the growing of it to the transporting of it to the eating of it. I think the Department of Ag has not necessarily been in those conversations before, so we're really having some growing pains on what that looks like, to full disclosure. Notable projects that we've been working on is the Buy Local program for Arizona. So Arizona Grown, we have relaunched that. It was dormant for about 15 years and looks very different, or the world looks very different today from when that program was launched. So it's been a really exciting way of getting community feedback on what it is that you want in a Buy Local program, as well as the regional food infrastructure grants just launched on Monday. You should check out that press release that just came out. There's some really cool projects happening. And then the Southwest Regional Food Business Center also is a big partner of ours. Or I guess we are a partner on that. And I also want to say that any notable projects that I have on in my department or that I talk about today is not, I do not solely do that. That is my amazing team of 8 people. It could not be done without them. So I want to lift that up.
All right, thank you so much, Ashley. Now, Rachel, could you share?
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. So yes, I am the state director over Arizona and New Mexico for Farm to Power. So I actually started as a rancher in 2020 because of the need with the food system. And then I started my nonprofit in the end of 2021, helping support other small farmers. And that was because I started off-grid ranching for 2 years. And then I wanted people to understand how the USDA programs work. And I kind of, in a way, was doing technical assistance. And then I've had 3 annual conferences for the past few years. And the 2 years ago, I helped over 1,000 acres go to small farmers. Last year, over 600 acres and over 500,000 in operating loans. And then Farm to Power actually sponsored my conference last year, and then they hired me as the state director right after that. But I actually got into renewable energy by supporting the SunZia transmission line. So as a rancher, I was supportive in speaking out in that process, and I learned quite a bit about the grid, how energy works, and then seeing how farmers and ranchers are really underrepresented in this space and landowners. And so Farm to Power came about after that, the SunZia transmission line and a lot of other gaps in the market and the need. And so Farm to Power supports farmers, ranchers, and landowners' rights and their right to diversify their income with renewable energy. And it's been a really eye-opening process. We uplift the voices of rural landowners and farmers, and I love. Getting to meet these people across both states, working with people and just kind of helping all of them grow. And the most important thing I love about it is where our goal is to keep farmland still farming. Which is like diversifying and keeping the land as with agrivoltaics. So like if you're going to do solar, still grazing with the solar, or doing wind, where they can still have their ranch land and more with the wind, but that way they can still make money doing both things. So thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you for that, Rachel. And you, Joseph?
Great, thanks. Appreciate this opportunity. Sure that I'm on the right panel though. These women are doing amazing work. I just work for a wine company. Bonterra Organic Estates. We're a Northern California wine producer up in Mendocino County. So we farm about 850 acres of certified regenerative organic vineyards. We have Bonterra as a core line there that you'll find in basically any grocery store or wine shop all over the US. We also have been quite committed to sustainability and sustainability type initiatives since the 60s, the founding of the organization. You mentioned zero waste. Yeah, if there's a cert out there, we may have it. And let's see, my role is responsible for the operations of the vineyard, all the estate fruit, at least, also our sustainability initiatives and our advocacy work. So that's basically my role in a nutshell. And as Ashley said, I couldn't do it without the team. So I become the face and I get all the recognition, but it's really not me. Solid team on the ground doing all the day-to-day work. So definitely need to make sure we remember that. Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for those insightful answers. Next, could you please walk us through your career journey to your current position? Have there been any pivotal experiences or moments you could tell us about? And we'll start with Lucy again.
Oh, yeah, so many pivotal experiences, I would say, but I always, I guess I like to start off by sharing that I did not go to design school. I came in through a passion for food justice specifically. And early on in my career, I started working at an organization called Food Corps when we were first launching that organization. And a bunch of us were kind of creating this thing together with a lot of on-the-job learning as a part of that process. And a lot of the work that was a part of that was what I would now call program design. There are different terms for it: program development, program management, right? But ultimately, as many of us do in our jobs, we had a vision, or we're developing a shared vision with collaborators, and then figuring out how to achieve that vision by creating, in this case, it was programs and services. And I was really interested in figuring out how to bring design frameworks in a more integrated way into essentially like design within the food system. And there were some really interesting resources out there in the world, but I think what I struggled with, even through pursuing my own professional development opportunities, like reading books and taking online classes, was that it struck me that a lot of those frameworks and approaches in the design world were lacking any sort of strong equity lens, at least the ones I were interacting with. So I ended up doing more research to find out, are there different ways that there are practitioners out there thinking about the intersection of design and equity, and what does that look like to bring it into food and food system design? And so I was able to meet some really incredible people, folks that I still know today, who were able to offer really interesting insight, examples, resources, and I would say that has been, it's not one particular moment or experience, but the generosity of peers in our space is something, it's not unique to food. And it's something really special, I think, about working in food, is that folks are passionate about the work and committed to collaboration. And so when you find that there are areas you're really excited about, people are really excited to offer their ideas and mentorship and support and all of that. And so that was very impactful for me when I was younger professionally, to be able to take folks up on the mentorship, on the learning and the resources that was offered. And that helped me to shape this intersection I'm in, which is like kind of niche, I guess you could say. Food design equity kind of is, in some ways, feels niche, but really it's not, because again, if you are somebody creating programs, creating services, creating projects, you are designing. So anyway, that's a little bit of how I got to where I am. I guess the last thing I'll note is that I was in-house working on a design and innovation team for over a decade. And eventually I got to this place where I had been there a long time, and I was kind of ready for the next experience. And I was excited to have a little more personal agency in, my decision making as to whether I wanted to say yes or no to projects or opportunities, which can be tricky when you're in a really big organization. And so with the desire to sort of stretch myself further, and a desire to also collaborate on different types of projects with different practitioners and have a little more creative space and a little more agency, that prompted me to start my own business, my design studio. So that's a little bit of the winding way that I got to where I am today. But in terms of pivotal experiences and moments, it's not one moment or one experience, but I'll just say people have been just absolutely at the core of it all, both inspiring the work and providing support to help you grow, or me grow, I guess, as an individual.
Thank you so much for that, Lucy. And you, Ashley?
I would say the same along the journey of just everyone you meet is very friendly in the food world, any sort of food world, wine included. Joseph, we need you emotionally sometimes with the wine. So I appreciate you. I would also say I kind of had an unorthodox way of getting here. I started in undergrad in psychology, and I got 3.5 years in and I was about to graduate, and I took a social stratification course. And it made me realize that a lot of the issues that we treat are systematic issues. So we are treating this thing, and then we send someone back into the environment that potentially had an influence on creating that issue in the first place without ever treating the system itself. So I decided I was going to change my major, and my mom was like, absolutely not. Although I was paying for it, so I had a say in it. So I ended up getting a dual bachelor's degree. I stayed an extra semester, and so I got psychology and sociology. And I think the people skills and the system skills have been honestly the most valuable part of those degrees. It applies to everything. And then I graduated when the first round of the economy crashed. So there were no jobs available, especially in the Midwest, small town Illinois. I didn't know what I was going to do. So I ended up going back I got a master's in social work, but I focused on it from the policy perspective. So the first year was generalist practice of interacting with clients. And then the second year was really, how do you push advocacy and lobbying to make changes in a system level? And everything I did that was around food because of my agriculture background. So any research that I did, any papers I did was always around food and food access. So I decided I wanted to get the heck out of Illinois and moved to Colorado, and I was working on a farmer cultivation center. So I was farming, organic farming, and then also training more farmers. So we had five farmers doing everything from curriculum development to business development. I was very young. I had no idea what I was doing, but it was a wild ride. And then from there, I built a relationship with a grocery store in Boulder that we used to sell our fruits and vegetables to. And they approached me and they're like, so we're actually getting ready to expand. Would you have interest in working with us? And I was like, yeah, okay. I'm thinking you got a couple of stores. So I opened 37 grocery stores in 4 years. One of the largest grocers, who I'm not going to mention, in our country, invested in them, and I got to go across the entire country and do foraging. So finding those local foods, understanding the boots on the ground local food systems issues. Food access was always the number one issue that always came up, and it was just kind of eye-opening that no matter where you are, in the root of it, that is the problem, is people just don't have access to the food. I couldn't set down roots, and I am a person that really is community-based and relationship-based, so I decided to move here. So I spent 5 years in Colorado, came here about 9 years ago, and I started working on RO1 research study at Arizona State University, and I was looking at fruit and vegetable consumption in kids throughout the state. So I think it was 1st through 12th grade. We worked with 36 schools. It was interesting. And then I dabbled in a PhD program for a couple years and realized I hate this, so I quit. And that honestly is probably one of the proudest moments of my life. It's a hard thing to decide. And then I did that for a few years, decided I wanted to get back into the practitioner world, and got a job at Maricopa County Department of Public Health on their SNAP Ed team, which was all around food access and agriculture. So trying to get more local food into corner stores, more local food into schools, training kids about farm to school, all of those things. And loved that job. And 5 years later, it was like, okay, it's time for something new. So here I am today. And I think I'm over my time, so I'll pass it off. Oh, I'm not? Okay, I have one more thing that I want to talk about. So in those pivotal moments that came up for me, it actually didn't happen to me, but it was in my master's degree, that the engineering department at U of I is like one of the top in the entire country. And they had gotten an EPA grant to go to India and build these wells. And it seemed great. It was like, okay, this is wonderful, moving water from, and cleaning the water to get it into the villages. Well, a year later, they spent millions of dollars, and they came back to check in, and nobody was using the well. The well was also broken. And they pulled in the social work department, and they went with them on a follow-up and realized that no one actually asked if you want the well. And nobody left the knowledge of how to fix the well. And come to find out, the women that were going out there to get the water, that was the only time they had away from their families. So they enjoyed going out there. They had an hour to themselves to go out there and gather water. So that really changed my perspective moving forward. In anything that I do, I want to ask, do you even want this? Tell me what you need versus I think you need this.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Now, could you share with us, Rachel?
Yes, I kind of explained a little bit in the first question, but I actually have a bachelor's degree in business, and then I also have an MBA degree, and I've had a few businesses. I was really motivated. I had a gym before, and I was really into fitness, and so when 2020 happened, I really cared about the food and meat specifically, which is why I ranch, and I've raised every type of animal, bred them all naturally, from feathered animals to all four-legged, except I haven't bred cattle, but I've raised cattle. I don't really like to raise cattle anymore. And just once you've been chased by a bull, it's not fun anymore. But I love it, and I actually did 4-H in high school one year in California, which is so funny. But what motivated me to pursue my career was my children, and I wanted them to have a future in food. I wanted to change their direction in life, and connect them to the land. So that was really important. And I've had many pivotal moments. I feel like everything's a learning experience. And so, like, from living off grid, having to haul water, just learning how the USDA programs work, food safety, and it's all like I meet somebody and then I learn and then I try to implement it and then I try to share it, and so that's how this process has been. But what's really been pivotal for me was the USDA calling my organization a partner organization, and that was really pivotal. I feel like my USDA contacts, a lot of people don't know that there's, the Farm Service Agency, that there's rural development, that there's the NRCS, that there's all these different branches. And so that's been really important for me in my personal journey and then also my professional, because that's definitely helped me as a state director in Farm to Power. It's really having these relationships has been really, really pivotal. But then it helps me navigate and help people get access. So when I had my first conference, our state energy coordinator spoke to me and spoke at that conference. And I learned about rural energy because she was from Alaska. And that was really interesting because I live down by the border. I live down by Mexico. And so we've had like outages and there was no electricity, and this is Arizona. So like your food all goes bad, your well's not gonna work, your animals aren't gonna have water, like it's a big deal. And so speaking out, with the Sunzia line, that really I didn't realize at the time, but that was really pivotal too, to where I am now and helping me build relationships into the energy as well. So it's learning about infrastructure has been really pivotal because people don't understand how important it is to have like a structure that is going to last, and how commercial codes work and regulation. And that's been, I'll stop with how many pivotal moments, but it's just going from like, okay, I'm gonna build a little like off-grid Adobe home to saying now I need like large commercial buildings, and then having acquired them and understanding the codes and going from like, okay, I'm off-grid, I like not conspiracy, but kind of like I don't trust anybody, to then all of a sudden I work with government. I spoke with the FBI a couple weeks ago in New Mexico, you know what I mean, on food, on safety, on protecting farms. And it's really just it's pivotal in these barriers of lacking of understanding to our knowledge growth, and then sharing that, because fear doesn't help anybody and understanding can actually help everybody. But there has to be relationships that help build and grow that understanding. So thank you.
Thank you so much for that, Rachel. And you, Joseph?
Yeah, great. Excuse me. My path has been circuitous as well. I'm from the East Coast, lovely Commonwealth of Virginia. Grew up there, went to VCU, and decided I'd study everything that piqued my interest. So I didn't know what to get a degree in. Settled with economics. Got an economics degree because I thought the professors were like kooky and interesting, and everybody's freaking out how hard it was. It kind of worked for me. So then I did an internship at the Federal Reserve, and we were looking at lending disparities in certain income brackets, and financial institutions were supposed to be lending to certain neighborhoods, and they weren't. So I really enjoyed that work. Um, I enjoyed the objective of that work. Let's say I did not enjoy the work itself. I was in a cubicle computer deal, not for me. So I wanted something more in light, like but touch and feel and living. So then I got a degree in horticulture. At the time, there was a horticultural therapy program. So for me, that was I had done a bunch of physical therapy work and such. So I was like, oh, this is perfect. I can work in horticulture and therapy and combine all the things as a master's degree. At that point in time, I realized I just wanted the horticulture degree, not all the master's stuff, because I didn't know what that meant. It's not like the background info. So I just got another undergrad. So I've got two BSs. So I'm all kinds of full of it, if you will. During that time, though, I was getting this degree from a land grant university in Virginia. So it's really quite conventional. This was many years ago, probably before some folks were born on the call here. So it was very, very conventional, not interested in organic at all. And on the side, I started learning about this crazy biodynamic thing. And that was really interesting to me because outside of mainstream had always been of interest to me. So I started pursuing that. Similarly, when I graduated, now I have 2 degrees. I had like a $5 an hour, probably nobody believes that that was actually a wage back in those days, job at a bakery. I was like, what the heck am I going to do? I've got 2 degrees. I think I'm smart. nobody's going to hire me. So I went and started working on some farms. I really wanted to learn more about biodynamic farming. There's plenty you can learn from a book, but farming is not really one of those things. So I was lucky enough to work on a few different farms, biodynamic farms. At that point in time, one of the farms where we were making these preparations for the biodynamic process, we brought in some winemakers, some consultants from California. And at that point, I met a wonderful man named Ivo Jeremez, who runs Gurgit Hills Estate in Napa. So he shipped me out to Napa to run his biodynamic program. I knew nothing about wine, nothing about vines, knew some things about soil and compost and plants and whatever, cow horns and such. And from that point, that really introduced me to the wine industry. And I was excited to find a career that I could work in agriculture in a legal way, make a decent money. And the wine industry's been fun. So I've basically just stayed in the wine world ever since. There's been some twists and turns, of course, and started as an intern, and here I am, senior director of something. So yeah, quite interesting. But I would just say for anyone on the call that's like, oh, I don't know what to do. I mean, don't worry. I didn't know what to do for the longest time. I'm not real sure still, but I got this great job, so it works out.
All right, thank you so much, Joseph. I love how all your answers really showcase the diversity of experiences within food systems. But next, could you please tell us about what opportunities have emerged or do you anticipate emerging for you as a result of your current position? And we'll start with Lucy again.
Oh, yeah, so many opportunities. There's a lot. I mean, I think the way I interpreted this question when I first heard it is about the opportunity to share in and model a different way of working. I think that there's people work through different modalities and they like to process information in different ways and collaborate in different ways. And I think oftentimes in a number of industries, right, I could say this from personal experience working in nonprofits, for example, that there's sort of like a dominant culture way of doing things. And there are other ways that are great as well. And so I think when I think about sort of equity driven design and what it means to take different mindsets and different practices that invite people to the table and more than anything center the experiences and the voices and the expertise of folks who know whatever area of work you're working in, really well from various forms of lived experience, to show that it's actually okay for us to operate and work a little bit differently, right? Just because it's different than the way an organization has operated for a long time isn't necessarily something to be nervous about, and actually increases more opportunity for stronger collaboration. Going back to what Rachael was talking about, like everything is relationship based, right? Like that's how we develop relationships and strengthen those relationships. And so, through, I would say like half of my work are these design projects. I gave an example earlier that are like 4 at the shortest, but 4 to 24 months in length, sometimes longer. I'm working on a multi-year project right now. And some of my work is actually doing like in-house trainings and workshops for folks who design, whether that's in their title or not, who are interested in thinking about bringing more equity-centered mindsets and practices into their work or strengthening a muscle that they're eager to strengthen. And so that's what I think about the opportunity here is to, I think I'm in a unique position in running my own business in that like I can demonstrate that without fear of what might happen. Like I can be out there in the world saying like, hey, these are the values that I have. Here's how I try to put them into practice. Here are the ways I'm growing. Here are the ways I've totally messed up and have learned from that and want to do better. And my hope is that that creates opportunities for, again, folks from all different backgrounds to come together, to work together, and to demonstrate like, hey, to other peers out there in the world, there are certain ways of working that we just have normalized that are sometimes kind of harmful or just aren't working for everybody. And so the demonstration of that and being able to hopefully encourage and inspire folks to step into that feels to me like a really big opportunity. That's in addition to like the impact of the design work itself, which always every project feels like a new opportunity to help support change. Systems change often. And it really comes down for me a lot into the day-to-day work and how we work together and how we offer different ways of thinking and being in the world, because there's so many ways to be.
Thank you, Lucy. And you, Ashley?
Yeah, this one was kind of a hard one for me. I feel like one big thing when I took this role was I didn't understand how politically charged it was going to be. So, for those that don't know, the Department of Agriculture, so every state department has a director at the head of it, and that is appointed by the governor's office. So, when a governor comes through, someone else is like the head of the department. So, because of that, you have uncertainty potentially every 4 years of what you'll be working on. And then, in addition to that, I mentioned at the beginning, the federal grant cuts, that has been, I guess, an opportunity. In some ways, I was able to kind of like pull the strings of my network and try to get food service directors that were being impacted with the Try It Local program getting cut, and farmers, what that was doing to them. And I gathered that information and took it to NASDA, which stands for the National Association of State Departments of Agriculture. And they work directly with the federal government, as well as the House Ag Committee. I took those statements up to the federal level, and then we also wrote a couple of letters to Secretary Rollins about the importance of what this is doing, these cuts or these freezes. And I really never saw myself being directly involved with the federal government at that level, as well as working closely with Governor Hobbs. So her policy advisors, we interact with them very often. I get to hear things that they're working on or issues that are coming up for them. As well as any bill that's proposed that has to do with agriculture, it frequently comes across our desk. So I was able to provide direct feedback from a bill that maybe didn't make the most sense for agriculture. It made a little sense, but it kind of pigeonholed people. So how do we make sure that everyone can be involved in this and not just a specific type of agriculture? So really trying to push the envelope, I guess, and I guess lifting up what Lucy said. Constant change. Everything is constant change, and sometimes when you're in this environment, it's hard for other people to understand that change needs to happen. So you have a lot of tough discussions, and I think that has been an opportunity for me, is understanding those crucial conversations, trying to, I guess, just say the difficult thing in the room and see what happens.
Thank you so much, Ashley. And you, Rachel?
We just hope to, from Farm to Power, be in the conversation and have an impact. That's all. I mean, we are we have been around for a year now, over a year. We're in our second year now, that just started, and a lot more people are finding out about us. I'm being reached out to, like the extension office is already a partner, but different agents are reaching out and asking, or different projects are reaching out and asking. I had ASU reach out and ask me, a doctor, like last week, about some things. So we really hope that a lot of projects will grow. We hope awareness will grow. I feel like we're not even at a tipping point yet. There's just going to be so much growth in these industries. So we really hope to still bring farmers, ranchers, and landowners into the conversation and hopefully have an impact. And what I've seen personally as a rancher trying to get into renewable energy, as a landowner trying to get into renewable energy, these conversations are not being had from the other side. You know what I mean? So I hope to help push all of these things forward in both states. So yeah, and we are not just in Arizona and New Mexico. So in all the states that we're in, we definitely hope to have a larger impact this year.
Thank you, Rachel. And Joseph?
Yeah, great. Thanks. I guess I might take this a little differently. As far as opportunities, I started in Napa, like I said, and then I had an opportunity to go to Mendocino County, and Bonterra was an attractive place to go because in Napa, you're talking $100, $200, $300 per bottle of wine. That's lovely that it's organic and biodynamic in some cases and available to whoever it's available to. But for me, to be able to farm in this way at scale and provide a 10 or so dollar bottle of wine, I think the approachability, accessibility of a product that's grown well, and is available, and also to be able to show that these regenerative type farming practices are scalable. A lot of the criticism, especially around biodynamics in the past, has been it has to be small, it's only in the backyard, you have to be backed by some foundation, whatever. And to be able to show that that's not necessarily the case, I think that's really important as a to model the way, I guess, let's say, lead in a farming system that is regenerative, and does treat our people well, our land well, and has an approach that's you know open to a lot more folks. That to me is really important, and I think that oftentimes when it's already been said on the call, but when things come as challenges, that's yeah, it may be difficult, it may be a problem. It also allows for an opportunity. Right now, the adult beverage industry, for some reason, kids aren't drinking like they should. I mean, of age kids. Um, so, anyways, there's certainly a bit of a lower consumption. So that certainly though becomes okay. There's going to be some that aren't going to make it, some that are, as far as industries go. I'm saying producers. So really, how what do we need to do? How can we use this shift in the market, in the dynamic, to still maintain a strong business? Obviously, we want to be sustainable as far as our practices go, but if business isn't sustainable, then kind of the end of the business, right? So how can we continue to reevaluate our systems, reevaluate both the commercial side and the operation side to maintain a regenerative business, and also provide what the market is demanding, and in some cases educate the market as to what we're doing and why to support us versus other producers. If you really care for how one treats their people and the land and such, then I think it's really important to kind of voice that vote with that dollar, that purchase. So really, I guess more wine specific, but I guess as a career opportunity, I would say that obviously we all have some economic needs, but if you can make it work, if you can do it, then take the opportunities as they come. I've done significant, well, a handful of internships and apprenticeships and such, and you really got to kind of learn by doing. And then each one of those experiences, then you meet new people. Like Rachael was saying earlier, it's all relational. I mean, our regenerative farming is relational, but really how you continue through life and the opportunities that you get as far as careers go, a lot of them have been relation based. So I think it's really important to just remember that there's an opportunity. Might not be like the most comfortable thing to do in the moment, but sometimes you kind of just have to go out there and take that leap.
All right, thank you so much, Joseph. Now we'll do one final question and then we'll go into the Q&A. So, for students aspiring to follow a similar career path, what guidance would you offer to help them to start their journey? And we'll start with Lucy.
It's a good question. I'm going to start with what I don't think you need to do, which I think is important. If you're interested in design in general, I would say you don't have to go to design school. I'm sure there's somebody out there in the world who's like, don't say that. But I do feel that way for a number of reasons. I know when I first decided, I had trouble calling myself a designer or a design researcher when I first started. It was just a bit of imposter syndrome. And part of it was because I really looked up to a bunch of people who had gotten degrees in design, right? Or they had something in their title that indicated that there felt like there was some sort of credentialing there that felt important to me at the time. And I remember speaking with somebody who ended up kind of being a mentor and I get to work with still on a regular basis, who said, I know you feel this way, and I would estimate that about 50% of practitioners in the space don't either have design degrees either. And that I really need to hear when I was younger. And so I'm sharing that now in case anybody else needs to hear that. There are obviously many career paths where certain types of degrees and credentials are required, which is great. I don't want a surgeon working on me who doesn't have those credentials. And when it comes to design, so many people design. The history of design goes back, millennia. There are different, you look at community organizers and the way they take design approaches to the work they do when they're trying to further, priority initiatives that they have. And the same goes with all different types of design that takes place. So I think what's more important than that is to keep an open mind and see every opportunity as a learning opportunity. I know several people have mentioned that already, but it's really true. I think in American culture, we often identify a miss or a fail or a flop of some sort as just a failure and something negative, and all of it is information and it's learning. And if you've created some harm, you can work to repair that harm. You can take up accountability for that, and you should. And also, it's learning. It's all learning. And so I would not be where I am now if I didn't go forward with a curiosity, with an exploration sort of mindset to ask people questions and to learn from folks. And I would say that's the number one thing, especially as Joseph mentioned, like my path anyway was very windy, and that's an okay thing. I think it's great. I learned a lot from everything. I majored in something called political communication, a very niche area of study, you could say. And there's a lot from that I still apply to my work today. So when it comes to design specifically, unless you're going into like architectural design, costume design, there are specialties for that. If you're thinking about the type of like programmatic design, service design type of work that I do, there are many ways to learn those skills through practice, through mentorship, through so many types of learning that just focusing only on like graduate school, for example, I think it's just something I wouldn't advise. It might be a great option for you. Could be great. There's so many new programs popping up all the time in food, in design, at that intersection. It's fantastic. And if that's the route for you, wonderful. And no, it's not the only way. That's what I would say.
I'll go ahead. 100% what Lucy said. Also, if people hold their credentials above respecting you and your credentials or the lack thereof, you're in the wrong room. So exit the room. You aren't in the space of growth. So I think also many people go into this with like, I'm going to do this when I grow up, or this is the career path I'm going to have. I still have no idea what I want to be when I grow up, and we're all just figuring it out. And if anyone is acting like they do have it figured out, they're lying to you. And many of the jobs that you are going to have don't exist yet. So just keep that in mind. Food systems, when I started, I would have gotten a degree in food systems, but that was not a term anyone knew. So here I am now working in food systems. So just keep that at the forefront of your journey, that you don't know what's going to come, just roll with the punches. And we're all still just figuring it out, like I said. And I remember also being nervous a lot around people who had these credentials or that were in like leadership roles. And be confident in yourself. You have skills that I don't have. So that's typically the exchange of understanding, no matter what age, background, degree path that you took, degree path you didn't take, we all have something to learn from each other. And also the application of things is more important to me than you being able to tell me what a research study says. It's great. I appreciate the research. I've been in the research. I've done the research. But not being able to apply it to real life is not helpful. And if you come into a workplace and drop this knowledge, you're actually kind of looked at funny, because it's like you have no idea what's happening on like boots on the ground. And also, I think one of the biggest skills when I hire is people's ability to have difficult conversations, to actually just be a human being and show up as yourself and being comfortable with that, and just generally being able to talk to people. Skills, I can train you on skills. I can't train you on personality, and I can't train you on just being a good human being. So I guess work on being comfortable with who you are and in those spaces, because the skills will come. It's not that big of a deal. And just take every opportunity that you have available to you. And kind of like Joseph said before, you might get an internship or a job that you're like, this is way off, but you have no idea the jumping point that will have for you.
So I never imagined being a state director in agriculture or energy. My life has taken so many turns from when I started 5 years ago, even before that, even, however many years ago. But I recommend doing something that you like or want. Start there because it starts by doing. By doing, you build relationships. So if you're like, I do want to farm, or you do want to work at a farm, or you do want to work in the nonprofit space, you do want to help people, by starting there, and maybe you're not going to get paid for it. All of my knowledge did not come from being paid. So it's been a journey, and I feel like many state directors that I know, I think it's because of their experiences that they got here. It's not that they were, uh, I don't know. It's very interesting, but my experience comes from nonprofits. It comes from relationships. It's getting now into the energy sector, but just start by building those relationships. So back to the relationships, you guys, because it is that important. And when you're looking, LinkedIn is good for building those relationships, and then also seeing what opportunities are out there, because a lot of nonprofits hire that way if you are trying to get into the nonprofit world, and farms and things like that, and you can kind of just start from the bottom.
Okay, I'll go. Uh, Pretty much ditto to all of that. Is ditto still a thing? Y'all still say that? Yeah, okay. Yeah, super relational, and I really would 100% agree on just kind of get out there and what is the interest. I heard someone say at some point, like, follow your passion is a little overwhelming. So even the curiosity, right? Like, if you're interested in things, just find ways to continue to follow those interests. Um, as I think all of us have already said, it's like one thing leads to another. You have no idea where you'll end up. I had no clue I'd be here where I am in this role. Um, and I would just reiterate what Ashley said as well. I interview, I have interviewed quite a few people for quite a few roles, from sustainability managers to shop managers to vineyard managers, tractor drivers, on and on. But um, I will take a better attitude over better skills every day of the week. So you got to work with people. And if I don't like your attitude, I don't care how many degrees or skills you have. Like, you got to be able to fit into the team. So yeah, I think just following the things that are of interest. Similar to Rachel, I'd say the significant amount of the things I learned along the way, I did not get a paycheck for. Certainly, there's you have to pay the bills. I get that, but yeah, find the ways and meet the people, and do some volunteering if you can, and just keep on keeping on. One thing leads to another, and yeah, I would never have thought I'd be where I am today. Still not sure what I want to do when I grow up, but here we are. Yeah, one day after the next.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for sharing such thoughtful answers and advice. Hearing each of your career journeys and experiences shows just how much the world of food systems has to offer. Now we'll open up a Q&A for any questions. So if there's anything specific you'd like to ask any of our panelists, please send it in through the Q&A on Zoom. And these are open for any of you all to answer. And I believe we already have one, which is, how do you see the role of technology/data science in the future of food systems?
I can go on that one if you guys don't mind, because I just was at a conference in New Mexico. That was the one with the FBI, and it had to do with cybersecurity and how important that is, for businesses, for farms, for your infrastructure. So I see tech is like the future, involved in like so many things. It's just not all of the infrastructure is there yet, but I see like at least large industries need it more than ever, because they need the security, they need, it's a lot of checks and balances, you know, and I don't know how much is trickled down for safety for, you know, the general public, but at least in agriculture, that is our food. So I imagine that they are all going to take that the cybersecurity and the technology security very put a very high importance on.
All
I
right,
was,
thank you, Rachel. Oh, I'm so sorry.
no, you're fine. I was just gonna add, same vein, biosecurity and how working for the Department of Ag and seeing the regulation side of things, it's scary what is happening with a lot of things. And to know, like in Texas right now, people were ordering things off of Temu and they were getting seeds delivered to their houses. That has happened in Arizona before. And these are not, they're foreign seeds, they're not native. It's potentially an issue if you start growing them here. And people don't realize that. It could be invasive, it could take over something, it could bring pests with it. So I do see the role of technology potentially helping us in managing that, as well as supply chain. I think it's really hard for small and mid-sized farmers to plug into the supply chain and the like the distribution of food. So finding some sort of technology to support that is really necessary, because I don't think it exists right now. That's one of the biggest issues, is moving food within our state, which is bizarre to me, or even processing the food within our state. Most of it leaves and then comes back. It has more like fly miles than I have.
Yeah, I appreciate those on the security side. On the operations side, as far as technology, I feel like it's like a wave that you're not going to stop. However, I've certainly been somewhat disappointed in some of the technology. Electric tractors, for instance, the thing doesn't run more than 4 hours. It's not a shift. Like I gotta get at least 8 hours of a tractor, and when the battery's dead after four, I'm like, come on. So I appreciate the try, I suppose. But then there's some monitoring technology, that is incredibly helpful. There's some automation as far as irrigation goes. But I would just maybe caution as well that, especially on a farm system, a regenerative and organic farm system, that the human observational capacity should not be, I guess, discredited or devalued. There's certainly some monitoring that can be quite helpful and super useful. However, there's also some glitches. There's also the need for the farmer's footsteps, if you will. So I think it's about finding that balance. Really, there's usefulness, but we also want to make sure that it's balanced with the human touch or human observation.
All right, thank you guys so much. So this next question is a bit of a long one, but have you noticed any recent trends in food systems, either in your own work or more broadly? For example, are there particular types of jobs or roles that are becoming more important? And what do you think is sparking stakeholder buy-in from governments, companies, or the public for investing in food systems?
It's multi-pronged. I'm tired of being last. I'm just kidding. This is a great panel. I'm trying to be funny, and now I totally forgot. So really, just to take on the first question, I mean, there's a ton of jobs in technology now, in ag technology. I mean, like on and on and on. I see a whole bunch there. And then similarly, but perhaps in a different lane, I feel like the way we treat our fields, our crops, and our farmers and farm workers has been more and more coming to light and coming to the consciousness of consumers. So it's like two trends. One is almost like humanless, and the other one is all human. So it's fascinating to me, but the interest both from the marketplace on how we farm, and are we instilling or recreating regenerative systems, is a trend that we see. And we also see a significant amount of jobs based in technology and farm tech. I think those are probably the two bigger ones that I can think of right offhand.
I'll jump in. Well, speaking toward any part of the food system that is being impacted by cuts and freezes, which is enormous, really, really enormous. I think that there's an opportunity. I don't think this is necessarily getting stakeholder buy-in at like a government level necessarily right now, but I think that with the shakeups that are happening, it's really important to see it as an opportunity to figure out, with things shifting, how can we effectively, ethically, and meaningfully reinvest in regionalized food systems. And it's hard to say that in some ways, given some of the cuts that we have seen in just the past few weeks, to programs that supported, regional food systems and local food systems. And anytime the ground is moving beneath us in this way, I think serves as an opportunity to see like, well, what can we do now with things shifting? What does that mean? Where can the investments be made? Where can we think creatively about the innovations that make sense? Going back to what you said, Joseph, like, I'm not a big fan of innovation for innovation's sake, right? Like, where do we need, like, what are the ways that we return to the ethical and land-based practices that we should be returning to? Where are the places that we can think creatively to do things a little bit differently? How can we think strategically about partnerships, about sort of creative strategy? All of that like feels like an opportunity even when tough stuff is happening. So I would say that I'd say the trend is a lot of cuts and a lot of freezes, and the opportunity is like, well, the landscape is just completely different. It's shifting still, and it's different. What does that mean for how we can show up to do the work really impactfully? And in particular, I'm thinking a lot about investing in local and regionalized food systems that are going to be more resilient for the planet and for the people that are here.
I love that. I would also add something that's been interesting working for the department, again, is the regulatory side of things. Any meat that is processed, you have to have an inspector there to watch it the entire time it is processed. We don't have many processing facilities in the state of Arizona. I think there's maybe 5. Rachel, maybe 6. I think, yeah, there's not many. And same with any food that's moving between states or coming from Mexico or Canada, that has to be inspected before it comes across the border to make sure it's not bringing in pests. You should see some of the scorpions that we have that have come across from Thailand. They're like as big as my head. It's crazy. They're bottled. Next time I'll bring one. But I think knowing that we don't have enough inspectors in our state for the amount of food that we need, so the government budget has not caught up to where it is impeding commerce. So we don't have enough inspectors to be checking as much meat that's being processed. That's a big problem. That's a big food safety problem. That's also a big problem for ranchers. So that's one thing for me that I'm seeing a trend is the need to have, it might not be sexy, but inspectors. We need to have people in those roles to ensure that food safety is upheld, that the USDA requirements are upheld. And then also, I think I made a note here so I didn't forget it. Food safety, again, departments across the United States are getting 60 to 70% of their budgets cut right now for food safety. That is very concerning. And you are going to see an increase in sicknesses because of that. Who knows what's going to happen? So making sure that people might have a passion in food safety, that we send them down that, we support them in sending them down that journey. Again, maybe not so sexy in the food systems world, but necessary for the food system to run. And then another thing that has come up that's been very interesting, because I work with all farmers, so small, mid, large, very corporate farms, I see them all. And you would have asked me 5 years ago, I probably wouldn't have said this, but I think they're all necessary in the world that we exist in right now. To have food for everyone. It is very costly to have regional food systems at this point because the infrastructure does not exist. So thinking about the equity piece is really important. And then also knowing the language to use about this topic. So do not say climate change around certain farmers. Know who you're meeting and who you're meeting them where they are. But if you talk to any farmer across the country, they are seeing an increase and climate-related disaster events, and they know it is happening, and they know it is impacting the growth of food. And I think that is where you're seeing the buy-in from the government and schools and multiple things like anyone that's buying food, institutions, because they're seeing that the system failed us during COVID. And I think we're seeing the need to build those value chains again. So I think it's almost an opportunity in a negative experience to kind of build this microcosm of food.
I'll just go really fast. I saw like on a like TikTok that they said we're gonna be over 550,000 short of like electricians and plumbers. And it's like, imagine if your toilet breaks, like no one's gonna be there to fix it. So it's kind of like what Ashley was saying with meat inspectors. So I just see a lot of opportunity in the future for skilled jobs where you actually need to understand what it is you're doing. So whether it's your own operation, an operation you're working on, understanding like the top to bottom, how it works, whether it's electricity, whether it's the irrigation, and there's not a lot of training on how all of that stuff works. You know, how do you do the plumbing? How do you do your irrigation? You know, how to make all of those things work. And then I see a blend of like hydroponics coming in, um and all of like especially with a lot of data centers, our water shortages. I see a lot of that's where I see the blend of like technology. So it's like a weird cross of like old school and like new school coming together, and the need. And then but also tying it back into energy, because we also need to be energy sustainable. So I do see that as like another layer on top of it, that needs to be, how much energy are you consuming, and how much is it regenerative? Is it sustainable? Is your energy clean? You know what I mean? If the grid goes down, because we're trending towards being independent, our country, you know, and so providing our own electricity matters. You know, but also providing our own food. And I swear, last thing, but like I was talking to the extension at NMSU, and there's an economic developer, and he's like talking about like, okay, well, what about like soybeans? You know, this is a big deal because we're trying to shift to products that are going to make these people money instead of the things that they were doing before. So there's going to be many, many changes. And I see like a blend of the old and the new all coming together, and the technology. So I like what Ashley said about the careers aren't even there yet. You know, so I really, the more you learn, the more you know, and you'll be able to.
All right, thank you so much, guys. So next up, this person is asking, you all talked a lot about the importance of people and community. I'm a writer and would love to know if you all have any storytelling projects you've seen recently that you're excited about or would love to see in the future.
So we do storytelling at Farm to Power by sharing farmers, ranchers, and landowners stories, by destigmatizing renewable energy in these areas. So I love like seeing that out there. You know, I really do. Seeing the blend of, it's not, everything's not villainized. You know, how can we put our hands together, type of a thing. So any type of stories in agriculture, I love them. You know, so thank you for doing your storytelling.
Yeah, I would totally reiterate that. We, as a wine company, we certainly have all the channels full of short or longer form. However, excuse me, sorry, I really just want to reiterate the importance. In order for us to move a system, I think the awareness and the consciousness has to be there. And the most ideal or the most effective way to penetrate consciousness is through storytelling, right? We're all attracted to stories. We've been hearing stories since we were babies, before we could speak even. And that's really how we can move individuals and masses. So I appreciate the question and that call out, and it's incredibly important. The practices we do are super important. However, if the story isn't there to kind of pull the emotion and to awaken the consciousness about the importance of those practices, then it's just like Charlie Brown, wah 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 wah, right? There's nothing there behind it. So thanks for bringing that up. I think it's incredibly important.
I just want to add, I 100% agree. Storytelling is something the department is missing. And I think a good story is one that Rachel touched on this, not pitting people against each other. Like not one thing is right and one thing is wrong, because I think we are so inundated with negative media right now. So finding a way to present it in, I can tell you, I'm not going to change my habits if you come at me and yell at me that it's wrong. I'm more likely to come along with you. So tell a story that I come along with you and not pitting us against each other.
Yeah, the environment is really tough now, especially with where we hear stories from, right? And whether that's peers, community members, TikTok, like it comes from very different places, and so attention spans are tricky, which is why stories matter so much. I would say that this is a random example, but it's a specific example about a storytelling project that or organization that has storytelling projects I'm really interested in. Um, I think data can sometimes be less touching, right? Because we're talking about like storytellers with like really big numbers, and oftentimes like we're talking about quantities of things and lengths of time that just are very hard for our human brains to wrap around. And so I find outlets like The Pudding, if anyone reads them, really interesting because they take data scientists and visual artists together to communicate some of those concepts in really interesting ways. So I think it's both the storytelling and finding ways to communicate the gravity of some of what we want to be able to communicate through those big numbers and timeframes and things like that that are often kind of lost on us because of the way we process information. So I would share that getting creative in those ways and the context and environments we're in is always great and a great way to like hook people and get people interested in. And then at the center of everything is really story and community and land.
All right, thank you, everyone. So next up, what is the most stressful part of your career and how do you tackle it?
Wine. We go to Joseph. Um, kind of kidding. I would say everything is the most stressful because it feels like you're building the boat while you're rowing it in food systems. Yeah, I see a lot of head nods. Um, I think also the politic part of not really knowing how to navigate that all of the time. And I am tied to statute, so I can only do things that are written in statute. And I don't think people realize that you should be doing this. Well, I can't do that because none of you have proposed a policy or to your legislators for it to change. So I think, how do you tackle that? I haven't figured that out yet. I'm personally still navigating that. Spending time with family and disconnecting, as well as trying not to doom scroll when you get home from work, and reading books and just trying to take care of my heart and my head versus my work. Sometimes it's more important to uphold your health than it is the work, even though this work is, I think, mostly our entire lives. You can't get away from it.
It's a day to day. I mean, there's certainly some environmental factors that we face in California that can be incredibly stressful in the moment. Um, for us, I really want to make sure that the team goes home as well or better than they came. So incredibly safety oriented, um, because that talk about stress. If you lose a coworker on a tractor or some accident because they weren't being safe, the numbers are a bit stressful, but at the end of the day, I think it really you have a bigger picture in mind, right? What's the bigger picture and the ultimate game? Are we still treating the land and our people well and still um, making money for the business goes? I would say the best way, and maybe not everyone is as fortunate as I am, but I have an incredible wife. Um, second wives are way better than first wives, I must say. I'm sorry. Just in my experience, the most amazing partner at home. So if the home life is good, then I mean, there's really not a whole lot you can't do when you have a super solid life partner like that. So, and then I mean, Ashley nailed it too, right? Just some fitness, whatever. Get a little movement in there, get a little time to de-stress, whether it's with amazing wine that we make or whatever your non-alcoholic beverage of choice is. But yeah, just making sure you're taking care of kind of the mental and the emotional and physical part of the body, because the work's not going to end. And then we're back at it tomorrow again. Well, maybe not me tomorrow, but the next day. So yeah, there's a bigger picture in mind, and just maybe remember that it's all relative, right? I'm not, like Lucy mentioned, a surgeon. There's nobody's life that I'm trying to save. So really, not to say that wine isn't important or food systems aren't important, but at the same time, got to kind of put it all in perspective, I think.
Yeah, I think the food systems is so, especially with, community-based food work, which we all do, is it's so relational that it's really hard when you keep talking to peers, whether they're farmers or producers, folks working in distribution. On the consumer side, it's really everywhere, are struggling because of whatever is happening at that moment, whether it's program cuts and freezes, to really bad, seasonal weather. Like it's really hard because it impacts people that you know and you care about. And I think that is can be incredibly stressful. I would say, running, somebody who runs a small business, it's not the most stressful part, but it's how to figure out how to make sure that you have enough in your cup to be able to pour into others. And I feel that way as a parent. I've got 2 young kids, and I know that I can't show up as my best self for them, if I'm pouring from an empty cup or attempting to. And the same goes in work as well. And so, burning the candle at both ends just doesn't really feel like an option for me from a work perspective. So that means like getting sleep, which I did not do in my 20s, but like I do now when I prioritize it. It makes a huge difference. I can show up in the morning with clarity, with some clarity at least. I'll get some coffee and I'll have some clarity. And I feel like I have more energy to give. Being with my family, snuggling with my kids, being outside, eating and cooking tasty food, like all of the stuff that brings you joy in your life is super important. And whatever that is for you, finding ways to make sure to fill your cup is really important because we want our work to have joy in it, right? And if it's not always possible, but when we can make that possible, we really should.
Definitely. I'll just echo, health and your relationship. I'm so grateful. I'm in the best relationship and it's helping me to really manage and balance and do everything. I wouldn't be able to keep the farms going, the ranches going, travel, all of this stuff without them. And then I have a really strong support team as well with my nonprofit and then also with Farm to Power. So, but without that, there's a lot going on in the world. So I think that is the hardest thing. Or I have a lot of mentors and people have health issues. So it's hard, balancing like the negative with the positive. So I think having that peaceful place. So yeah.
All right, thank you, everyone. And we have another question. This person says, I'm studying the improvement of health outcomes through better food systems, and I'm curious to know how you all see your roles improving the health of the public from the perspective of food systems.
I'll jump in. Yeah, it's very much tied to work that I do. I think often about the fact that I like to say that food is nourishing, and we talk about nutrition a lot, and nutrition is super important, absolutely. And it's one part of like what nourishment means for us because food is a connection to our culture or our cultures. It is a connection that we have to the land and waters. It's connection to history, like to each other, right? And we're getting to share meals with community members or family or friends or strangers. There's so many types of nourishment that come from food, and all of those forms of nourishment impact health, right? And we can go into a deep dive into the social determinants of health, and that's important to talk about. And a part of that is social connection. It's about eating foods that we are culturally connected to. It's about eating foods that are nutritious and nourishing, and all of that is connected. And so to me, it doesn't feel like it's in any way separated, but it's a part of the conversation always. And I would just personally encourage us to think broadly about what health means. It's about physical health, it's about mental health, it's about community health. And food can positively impact all those things, but it also can make it a challenge to achieve those things. So I'll keep it brief in saying that, but I really do think about, and I think it's good to think about the number of ways in which health is connected to food.
110%. You said basically exactly what I was going to say. Social determinants of health, thinking that front of mind when you do your work, I think is really important. But then also, understanding that not everyone has access to what we consider nourishing food or healthful food. So I think be careful with the language that you use is one of my biggest learnings in any part of nutrition, agriculture, food systems, anything. It's important to respect people and where they are. And I had a situation recently where someone got a cake from a food bank, and someone that was kind of like observing made a comment about, well, why would you bring home cake? That's terrible for your kids, without recognizing that that's the birthday cake for their 7-year-old. And having those moments and those memories are just as important as calling something healthy or not. It is important to have those desserts. It is important to have moments with your family that are good memories, especially if you are struggling as someone who has struggled and has been food insecure. It's really important to lift that up as well. So it's a fine balance for sure. And then I see myself, I guess, in my role, trying to get more farmers so we have more food available at maybe a lower price, or finding ways to supplement costs in some capacity through grants or whatever, to where people can afford regional and local foods in a better capacity than they can right now with all the funding cuts.
I can't touch those. Those are beautiful answers. And I think probably some of the most important things to be said around health on our end. I would just hope that we are able to show a different way of farming. There's certainly many practices, and I do think that we should maybe judge less. We don't know what everybody's going through and why they're farming in the the system and the way they are. Excuse me. So for us, Bonterra Organic Estates, really, I think it's about trying to show that regenerative organic practices can be done at scale, can be done on the North Coast at least, and hope to perhaps show another way, and stay away from kind of like, this is the only way, or everybody should doing it this way. But this is a way that's effective and provide some degree of modeling and learning, as people are interested in maybe farming a different way.
So my nonprofit, People First Global Food and Land Reclamation Foundation, is a part of the Organic Transition Program. So that's one way that we help, and then also with mental health. So we incorporated a horse program over a year ago. So we're bringing those horses over to Tucson. Someone's working on the property right now. So we're hoping to expand the mental health portion of that as well. And then with Farm to Power, I think everybody having energy supports, our food system definitely, and the overall health as well. And I think people don't understand the changes and improvements that need to be made, but it's not for everybody to understand, or for me to explain. But the more that I learn, I'm like, oh goodness. So thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys. Now, one final question, just for anyone who may be interested in any of these opportunities. Do you have any current job openings or opportunities at your organization right now?
I do. It just posted this morning. It is a fairly entry-level position. We kind of posed it in a way that we understand people are coming out of college or coming out of maybe different backgrounds, and we will help you learn those skill sets that are necessary. So I'm dropping it. I don't know if it will share with everyone. Hopefully it did. I put it in the chat. If not, you can get on the Department of Agriculture or the state's job board, and the number is 533214. And this is a grant project specialist role that will be working with farmers, ranchers, and agriculture professionals, managing money to support them in doing the work that they so desperately need support with, especially in the face, again, of federal grant cuts. This program is safe. It is appropriated funding through the Farm Bill. So please let me know if you have any questions, but I'm excited to finally have someone in this role.
We do. We are hiring organizers in Arizona and New Mexico. So you can look on farmtopower.org. Hopefully they'll be posted soon if they're not posted yet.
We do as well. Bonterra.com. What's open today versus what's open tomorrow, it's always kind of changing at times. So yeah, lots of different roles, from sales, marketing, to in the field, and the bottling, to winery. I mean, there's opportunities at any given time. Not all of those are available right now, but yeah, Bonterra.com and see what's available. Thanks.
Oh, excuse me. I also didn't mention with ASU, we do have not through Farm to Power, but through my nonprofit. We're looking for interns as well for the summer.
I'm not currently hiring anyone at the studio. However, I feel free to contact me. I think LinkedIn is probably the best place, but I benefited and continue to from folks who have like offered time just to chat about their pathways and questions, and I always want to like pay that forward. So send me a note, and I can share. I've got a calendar link for like a few times a week where I get to meet up with mostly students, which I really love doing. So feel free to send me a note there, and I can send you that link, and we can find time to chat. If you're interested in specifically the design food intersection, other areas of expertise, not so much, but if you just want to chat too, that's fine. Send me a note there. I'll help if I can.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for your engaging questions and participation. But this unfortunately brings us to the end of this event. One final huge thank you to our panelists who took the time to do this. It was genuinely such a privilege to learn from you all. And thank you to everyone who attended. I hope you're all leaving today having learned something valuable. We'll be sending out a recording of this event and links to learn more about our graduate programs if you're interested. So thank you again, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Have a great weekend.